There are certain days that seem ordinary on the surface, yet carry something deeper beneath, something quiet, something emotional, something that lingers long after the moment has passed. That day was one of them. There were no flashing lights, no grand announcements, no dramatic stage filled with anticipation. Just a piece of writing. Simple, almost understated. And yet, it held a weight that few words ever truly carry. It was the day when Deng Kai chose to put into words what had likely lived in silence for so long. A feeling that did not arrive all at once, but instead grew slowly, naturally, almost unnoticed, until it became impossible to ignore. And when he finally expressed it, he did so with a sentence that struck straight to the heart. He loved Kong Xueer more than anyone. At first glance, it is a simple sentence. Clear, direct, not overly poetic, not dressed in complicated metaphors. But that simplicity is exactly what makes it powerful. Because behind those few words lies a story of quiet realization, emotional vulnerability, and a kind of honesty that is becoming increasingly rare. Deng Kai has never been known as someone who expresses emotions in an exaggerated or performative way. He is not the type to turn feelings into spectacle. And perhaps that is why this moment felt so significant. When someone who usually keeps things inside finally decides to speak, every word carries more meaning. Every sentence feels intentional. In his writing, he did not try to impress. He did not attempt to sound like a character from a romance novel. Instead, he wrote like a real person, someone trying to make sense of something deeply personal. He spoke about how the presence of Kong Xueer gradually changed the rhythm of his days. How ordinary moments began to feel different. How even the smallest things like a smile, a glance, or a shared silence started to matter in ways they never had before. There is something incredibly human about the way he described those feelings. He did not claim to understand them immediately. In fact, it seemed quite the opposite. The emotions came quietly, almost unnoticed at first, like rain that begins as a soft drizzle before turning into something steady and undeniable. And one day, without warning, he realized that what he felt was no longer something small. It had grown into something real, something lasting. So when he finally wrote that he loved Kong Xueer more than anyone, it was not a spontaneous confession. It was the result of everything that came before it. Every moment, every thought, every feeling that had slowly built up over time. That single sentence was not just an expression, it was a conclusion. The reaction that followed was immediate and intense. People were surprised, moved, and deeply touched. Not because the idea of love itself was shocking, but because of how genuine it felt. In a world where emotions are often exaggerated or carefully curated, this moment stood out for its sincerity. It did not feel staged. It did not feel forced. It felt real. Many described the moment as something that stayed with them long after reading it. Some smiled, others felt a quiet warmth, and many found themselves reflecting on their own experiences with love. Because at its core, what Deng Kai expressed was something universally understood, even if rarely articulated so honestly. And at the center of it all was Kong Xueer, not just as a person, but as the reason behind every word that was written. Through his perspective, she became more than just a name. She became a presence. Someone whose existence alone was enough to shift emotions, to redefine meaning, to become irreplaceable. What makes this moment even more compelling is how it challenges the way people often think about love. There is a common belief that love must be grand to be meaningful, that it must be loud, visible, and dramatic. But this was none of those things. It was quiet, personal, almost fragile in its honesty. And yet, that is exactly what made it so powerful. Because sometimes, the strongest feelings are not the ones that are shouted the loudest. Sometimes, They are the ones that are carefully written, thoughtfully expressed, and deeply felt. Sometimes, a single honest sentence carries more weight than 1,000 elaborate declarations. There is also a certain courage in what Deng Kai did. To express something so personal is to make oneself vulnerable, to allow others to see what is usually hidden. And that kind of openness is never easy. It requires not only honesty, but also acceptance of whatever comes after, whether it is understanding, curiosity, or even silence. Yet despite all that, he chose to write it anyway. That decision in itself is what makes this day unforgettable. Not because it changed the world in a dramatic way, but because it reminded people of something simple and true. That feelings, when genuine, do not need to be complicated. That love, when real, does not need to be proven through spectacle. And that sometimes, the most meaningful moments are the ones that happen quietly, without announcement, but leave a lasting impact. For some, this may remain just a fleeting story, a brief glimpse into someone else's emotions. But for others, it becomes something more. A reminder that sincerity still exists. That vulnerability can be beautiful, and that even in a world filled with noise, there is still space for something honest. That day may have passed, but the words remain. And more importantly, the feeling behind those words remains as well. Soft, steady, and impossible to ignore. Because in the end, it was never just about a sentence. It was about everything that led to it and everything it made people feel. So, after hearing this story, do you think, can one honest sentence truly convey such profound feelings? Do you think what Deng Kai wrote is the truest form of love? Or is there something else we don't yet know? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'm genuinely curious to hear your perspective. If you enjoy content like this, which explores stories, feelings, and unusual moments, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. See you in the next video, and remember, sometimes a simple sentence can convey an irreplaceable feeling.